My name is Todd Phillips. I'm the planning manager here at the City of Chula Vista, and I have the unique honor of welcoming you all to the 2022 MSCP Workshop, which we, the City of Chula Vista, are hosting, albeit virtually. Today, you are going to hear from a number of speakers about what is going on in the region related to the MSCP program. For those of you who are new to the world of the MSCP, the Multiple Species Conservation Program was developed to preserve a network of habitat and open space, protecting biodiversity and enhancing the region's quality of life on the local level. This workshop will focus on MSCP accomplishments, including habitat acquisitions, management, and monitoring. The workshop provides an opportunity for the public and other interested parties to learn more about the unique habitats in the San Diego region, the role of the MSCP plays in preserving open space and regional conservation and management efforts. Members of the public will have the opportunity to learn about the habitats being restored and enhanced, the species benefiting from the projects, the status and the funding sources, and how the work being implemented plays a role in the larger regional preserve system. Today, we have representatives from a long list of organizations doing great work in this space. Today, we are joined by representatives from the City of Chula Vista, the County of San Diego, the City of San Diego, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the San Diego County Water Authority, the San Diego Association of Governments, the San Diego Management and Monitoring Program, and the United States Geological Survey. You will be hearing from many of them today. Again, I welcome you to the workshop today, and I will now turn it over to Anna Levitt of Recon and Dai Huang of the City of Chula Vista.
Thanks, Todd. Welcome, everyone, and happy Friday. I have a few tips to share with everyone before we get started. So please turn off your cameras and mics until after all presentations have ended. In the interest of time, please hold your questions until the end of the workshop during the question and answer session. We'll open the public question and answer session after the last presentation. At that time, feel free to raise your hand and turn on your mic and camera when called on, or you can post your question in the chat box. I'll drop the presenters' email addresses in the chat box during the question and answer session in case we run out of time and you have additional questions. When asking questions over your mic or in chat, please state the presenter's name so that we know who to direct the question to. And with that, let's get started. Dai Huang with City of Chula Vista's Development Services Department will kick off the presentations. Dai, you're up.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dai Huang. I am with the City of Chula Vista Development Services Department. Today, I am going to talk about the City Chula Vista Multiple Species Conservation Program Sub-Area Plan Overview, 2021 Report Status, and update on the management and monitoring of the Otairan Preserve. The Chula Vista MSCP Sub-Area Plan goals are to conserve covered species, their habitats such as Kino checker spot butterfly, coastal cactus grange, and to ensure interconnected significant habitat cost linkage such as the Otairan Preserve area, also to provide long-term management and monitoring. The Chula Vista Sub-Area Plan was approved in February 2003, and the take permit and implementation agreement was issued by the Wildlife Agency in January 2005. The sub-area plan provides conservation for 86 covered species, 99% hawkeye preserve, and approximately 9,243 acres. The sub-area plan also identified development standard, mitigation, a framework for management and monitoring, and long-term preserve management funding such as Community Facility District Fund for management and monitoring. 2021 conservation status. approximately 69% completed within the City of Chula Vista sub-area plan, 85% gains outside of the city, and overall contribution is approximately 76%. This slide shows the Chula Vista MSCP sub-area plan boundary and the MSCP Hawkeye Preserve. The Otairan Preserve includes 11,375 acres and will be assembled and managed by the City of Chula Vista and the county, also known as PALM, funding through the establishment of the community facility districts. Currently, approximately 4,370 acres under PALM management. This exhibit shows the Otairan Preserve. The areas shown in red are currently managed by the PALM. The areas shown in green are the MSCP Hawkeye Preserve. 2021 monitoring and management activity include Coastal California Natgator Survey, Coastal Cactus Grant Survey, Focus Rare Plant Survey, photographic monitoring. Management include invasive species treatment, litter removal, access control, gas, fan, and site repair. I would like to end my presentation with a quote from Henry David Thoreau. Wildness is the preservation of the world. And this concludes my presentation. I would like to introduce Anna Levitt with Recon Environmental and talk about the Otay Ranch. Thank you.
My name is Anna Levitt. I work for Recon Environmental, and I am a preserve steward biologist. So today I will be talking with you about Otay Ranch Preserve. Otay Ranch Preserve is located in southwestern San Diego County. It is managed jointly by the City of Chula Vista and the County of San Diego, and together they're referred to as the Preserve Owner Manager, or the POM, and I'll use that term POM throughout this presentation. So today's presentation is going to focus in on the Salt Creek drainage area, that surrounding area that's just west of the lower Otay Reservoir, shown on this figure. And I'm specifically going to focus in on a single species, the coastal cactus wren, and Recon's habitat restoration efforts to increase the wren population, as well as our effort to protect wren habitat from potential loss due to catastrophic fires. So coastal cactus wren is a special status species that has coverage through the MSCP. It's also a species of special concern through the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, as well as listed as a special status species through several other regional plans. And before I get started on talking about Recon's restoration effort, I wanted to highlight a few recent research papers that came out, and their monitoring efforts that overlap with some of our restoration areas. So the first paper is from 2022, Sewell and Lin et al. Came out through USGS. It highlights their 2015 to 2019 monitoring efforts, and it has a really great discussion on their arthropod prey study and associated host plants for arthropod prey species used by wrens. And then the next paper is it's another 2022 paper through USGS that provides their results for their 2021 cactus wren monitoring, which overlapped with some of the Recon restoration sites. And then finally, there's a 2015 plan through Trish Smith at the Nature Conservancy and Chris Preston at the San Diego Management and Monitoring Program. And within that habitat conservation plan, it identifies areas where shrub crowding and cactus dieback is occurring in wren habitat, as well as opportunities for enhancement and restoration. And we use that plan, we incorporate that plan into our restoration decisions. And I'll drop the links to those papers in the chat box at the when we go into the Q&A session. So that 2015 Habitat Conservation and Management Plan discusses Salt Creek, where our restoration projects are, and how Salt Creek is part of this Otay River Valley genetic cluster, and it's one of the core populations within San Diego County. That plan also discusses a significant decline, specifically at Salt Creek, in cactus wren territories from 1992 to 2014. There was a decrease from 41 territories to 7 territories. And that triggered additional research through USGS to try to determine the drivers behind this decline. And it also helped make cactus wren habitat restoration higher priority for those core populations. And now I'm going to be showing you a video that we made about cactus wren habitat restoration within the Otay Ranch Preserve. So enjoy.
Populations of cactus wren are in decline throughout coastal San Diego County. Cactus wrens only nest in cholla and prickly paracacti. This type of habitat is not common, which limits the area where the cactus wrens can live. Damage and destruction to cactus habitat makes it difficult for wrens to thrive. Over the last 2 decades, large, intense fires have damaged cactus wren habitat. Regional recovery efforts for coastal populations of cactus wrens are intended to stabilize and eventually increase population sizes. Otay Ranch Preserve is home to many rare bird species, including cactus wren. Coast cholla cactus die-off has likely contributed to a decrease in suitable habitat and population declines for the wrens. In Otay Ranch Preserve, cholla patches have declined in the last 10 to 15 years due to competition for water resources with weeds and native shrubs. Cactus wrens typically forage on the ground, and thick weed cover can prevent the wrens from finding their prey. Below average rainfall during most of the last decade has caused many patches of cholla to suffer or die from severe drought stress. The drought conditions have also likely decreased the availability of insect prey for foraging wrens. Within the preserve, shrubs and weeds have been removed from cholla patches in order to try to encourage wren breeding. Shrub and weed removal reduces competition for resources such as water and light, and allows cholla cactus to thrive. It also provides bare ground for wrens to forage. Long-term control of weeds and shrubs around cholla patches will reduce the risk of catastrophic fires that have the potential to cause the loss of wren habitat. Through population monitoring, biologists are able to determine if habitat restoration has successfully increased the number of cactus wrens. Restoration efforts within the preserve have increased the amount of cholla habitat available for cactus wrens, which is expected to allow wrens to breed and increase their population size.
So in 2021, we identified approximately 4 acres for wren habitat enhancement. And so those areas are shown in yellow. And then I also wanted to show all of the cactus wren habitat enhancement and restoration that's been done within Otay Ranch Preserve. So those kind of purpley pink polygons, those were initially funded through Sandag Transnet EMP grants. And then the red polygons were funded through the PALM. And for the rest of this presentation, I'm going to focus in on that yellow polygon to the north near Hunt Parkway at the green arrow. So this is that work site. There's a 10-year difference between the aerials, and this is prior to shrub thinning. What I wanted you to focus on are those dark green shrubs. Those are lemonade berries. Lemonade berry, it grows quickly, and it's a problem in cactus wren habitat because it overtops cholla and can eliminate that habitat. And so what I wanted you to focus in on here is you can just visually see how this open space is getting eliminated through the growth of the lemonade berries over the past 10 years. And then this small lemonade berry here, you can see after 10 years that there's no longer any space between that larger lemonade berry. And then this patch, the center where it's open 10 years ago, it is now show like there's a large cholla stand within there, and then it's showing that the lemonade berry is overtopping that cholla. And then here are two aerials about 8 months apart, and this on the right-hand side shows after shrub thinning. Here's the first stand of lemonade berry that was removed. You can see that those darker patches on the second photo, that's all cholla that was uncovered once that lemonade berry was removed. And then this second stand that was removed, you can see that there was hardly anything growing underneath it. It was pressing up against these large nesting size chollas. And then to bring in that 2022 USGS paper, they discussed how elderberry has been suggested as an important resource for cactus wrens, and it may provide territorial advertising perches for adults, escape cover for fledglings, and could also be an important host for prey arthropods. And so we use naturally occurring elderberry as one indicator for choosing these cactus wren enhancement sites. And this site had 3 naturally occurring elderberry, so the arrows are pointing to where they were located. And you can see that these first 2 were getting overtopped by that lemonade berry. And then the third one was at the toe of the slope. And then this photo is from January 20th, 2021. This is the first day that shrub removal occurred. You can see that there were dense non-native grasses and dense non-native forbs within the work area. And then again, bringing in that 2022 paper from USGS, they discuss how cover of non-native grass negatively influenced breeding productivity for wrens, even though there were abundant arthropods in the non-native grass, and how vegetation structure, such as non-native grasses, discourages the ground foraging behavior of cactus wrens and may negatively affect arthropod availability for wrens. So that really backs up the importance of removing these non-native species within wren habitat so that it can open up the ground and allow foraging areas for cactus wren. And then this is the first day of shrub removal. This is the recon crew. They're cutting back the lemonade berry with a chainsaw. You can see underneath those lemonade berry branches that there's cholla that appears to either be dead or on the verge of dying. It's covering it. This cholla is no longer of use for cactus wren. It's just overtopped and not tall enough. And then here is the site after the lemonade berry has been removed. You can see that the crew painted those stumps with herbicide in order to keep the lemonade berry from resprouting. And then here's an additional photo that shows where the lemonade berry branches have been peeled off of that cholla stand. You can see that it was pressing up against it and that there was virtually nothing growing underneath the lemonade berry. And then the crew a few weeks later came in and they collected segments off of the cholla stands, as well as from prickly pear that occurred on site. And then they planted it directly on the site within the areas where lemonade berry had been removed and there was bare ground. And then here's a picture of one of those puntia or prickly pear pads that was planted a few months prior to this photo. And you can see that there's already a new pad growing on it. And then here is a video of current conditions just back at the end of October. That bright green, that's all of the cholla where the shrub removal occurred, and you can see how that's much more vibrant than the surrounding area, and that is due to, like, once you get rid of the non-natives and some of the shrub removal, then it allows more water uptake for the cholla. And then now I'm going to take you on a little site visit from last week. Here we go. So you can see that the ground has been opened up. There's no non-native grasses have been cut and removed. There's a little bit of green that you can see, and that is primarily short pod mustard, and so the crew will come in and treat that soon. You can also see that the cholla is really vibrant looking. It's taken up quite a bit of water now that those non-native species have been removed. And then upslope, there was a lemonade berry stump where the crew treated, and this is that stump. You can see that the herbicide application was effective. There's been no resprouts since treatment. And then you can also see hardly any vegetation growing under that lemonade berry, and that short cholla had been planted by the crew just under 2 years ago. So then moving on, again, that short cholla, that's what was planted by just a single segment just under 2 years ago. And now we're coming up on the left to a larger cholla. So that's a nesting size cholla, which nesting size is 1 meter or taller. And it looks really healthy. It's had really great growth after non-native removal. And so we'll come in and have the crew remove segments from that cholla so that this doesn't happen. So this was a healthy nesting size cholla that had just grown so much, taken up so much water that it toppled over on itself. So it's not dead, but it will root. It's just not nesting size right now. And then moving to the south end of the site, we have more nesting size cholla. There's that shorter cholla that was planted by the crew, and then the prickly pear that's a little bit more of a vibrant green up on the slope. That was planted from a single pad, and that's all new growth. And then here's that bottom pad was planted, and everything else is new growth since then. You can see a little bite mark where maybe a little desert wood rat came up and munched it. And then behind, you can see the coast cholla segments that had been planted. And then I mentioned previously that blue elderberry was found on site, so that's just right to the right of the text. And then we also found purple needlegrass that was uncovered from the lemonade berry once it was removed. So both of those plants are host plants for prey arthropod species used by wrens, and that's discussed in that 2022 USGS paper. Here's one of the elderberries on site. It's looking really healthy. This had been crowded by the lemonade berry previously. And then here's the cholla that had been overtopped. You can see the skeleton. There was a little bit of living tissue in this cholla, and it's really amazing how much it can grow once that competition from the non-natives and the lemonade berry have been removed. So most of this green growth is new since the lemonade berry was removed. And then you can see the purple needlegrass intermixed in there. And then that's the end of our site visit. You can see San Miguel Mountain to the north. And then I wanted to weave together the USGS monitoring results with this habitat restoration discussion. So their data suggests that the driving forces behind low numbers of cactus wrens in the Otay population before 2015 were no longer in effect. So this is in comparison to the significant decline in territories between 1992 and 2014 that I mentioned earlier in the presentation. And then they also discuss other factors that could have influenced an increase in breeding productivity at the Otay population, was habitat restoration and control of annual herbaceous vegetation. And then an increase in hatching and fledgling success at the Otay populations in 2019 may have been influenced by the positive effect of habitat restoration. And then finally, they found that 3 recon restoration patches were established within their USGS monitoring area in Salt Creek, and wrens were using the sites shortly after restoration activities. And so there's more work needs to be done for this species in support of increasing the population, but these are encouraging findings. And then I wanted to recognize our crew, the recon crew. These guys, many of them have been with recon for 10+ years. They're the boots on the ground. You can imagine how challenging it is working in this habitat type. It's dense cholla and dense opuntia. They have really extensive knowledge on the non-native species to treat, as well as the native species that need to be protected. And then with that, I'd like to hand it over to Jennifer Price with the County of San Diego.
Thank you, Anna. Good morning. My name is Jennifer Price. I'm a Land Use Environmental Planner 3 with the County of San Diego Department of Parks and Recreation. Today, I will be presenting on the 2021 Multiple Species Conservation Program, or MSCP, South County Sub-Area Plan Annual Report, and this is our 24th annual report. The report covers the time period of January 1st to December 31st, 2021. The MSCP is a long-term regional habitat conservation program focused on balancing the protection of plant and animal species and the demand for housing, non-residential development, recreation, and agriculture. In the early 1990s, the county partnered with 11 jurisdictions to develop the MSCP, which ensures compliance with the state and federal Endangered Species Acts and the State Natural Community Conservation Planning Act. The MSCP is a regional plan that encompasses 3 sub-area plans for the county and cities of Chula Vista and San Diego. The county's South County Sub-Area Plan, which will be referred to as the South County Plan in this presentation, was adopted by the board in 1997 and covers the unincorporated areas of the southwestern portion of the county. The United States Fish and Wildlife Service and California Department of Fish and Wildlife issued the MSC permit approval to the county in 1998 and is a 50-year permit. This is the county's only adopted MSCP plan. In addition to the adopted South County plan, highlighted in purple, the county has 2 additional MSCP plan areas. The green portion is the draft North County plan, and as of late 2021, the plan area has been expanded. And the yellow portion is the future East County plan area. DPR's overall MSCP program focuses efforts to acquire, manage, and monitor preserved land within all 3 plan areas. As of December 31st, 2021, DPR owns a total of 44,200 acres of preserved lands in all 3 plan areas. This does not include additional parkland and facilities owned and managed by DPR, which combined total is 56,000 acres. As of December 31st, 2021, the county has acquired 25,460 acres of preserved lands in all 3 MSCP plan areas since 1998. Over the last 24 years, $221 million has been spent on acquisitions in all 3 plan areas to create or expand 41 county preserves. Of this, the county has spent $125 million and received an additional $96 million from partnering entities and grants. The goal of the South County Plan is to assemble a 98,379 acre preserve that supports the 85 plant and animal species covered by the MSCP. As of December 31st, 2021, the South County Plan preserve totals 79,976 acres, or 81% of the MSCP preserve goal. This acreage includes approximately 13,200 acres of county preserve lands. A total of 123 acres of habitat were added to the South County Plan preserve in 2021 through private and public acquisitions. These gains were from acquisitions by a local nonprofit partner for 102 acres and private land dedication required as a county condition. A private development added 2 acres outside the Hardline Preserve areas and 19 acres inside the Hardline Preserve areas. And this is associated with Otay Ranch Preserve. DPR preserve lands management and monitoring actions are documented in preserve-specific resource management plans. These resource management plans identify the specific activities needed based on the habitat types and species on site. Management actions include land stewardship activities such as vegetation management, ranger patrols, access control, trash removal, and trail maintenance. Additional larger scale habitat management and restoration efforts occur as needed. DPR's monitoring program has many facets that provide data about the preserve functionality. Data is obtained through baseline inventory surveys, which are performed on new acquisitions to understand what plants, animals, and cultural resources are present. The implementation of the county's targeted monitoring plan, which includes monitoring for specific plants and animal species and habitat types, and environmental surveys conducted for park improvement projects or through regional partnerships. In 2021, DPR implemented 9 restoration projects using $14.3 million in grant funding. The 9 restoration projects occurred on 6 DPR preserves and included invasive non-native plant species treatment, habitat restoration, access control, and trail alignment. These restoration projects benefited a variety of MSCP covered species, including coastal California gnatcatcher, Leesbell's vireo, coastal cactus wren, Cooper's hawk, and San Diego fairy shrimp. Coastal cactus wren habitat restoration at Lakeside Linkage Preserve, as you can see in the slide, spanned over 2 grants for a total of 8 years, has resulted in cactus wren foraging and nesting in the restored areas and have helped expand the species distribution. DPR also implements the tree planting program as part of the management and monitoring efforts on DPR preserve lands. The program was formalized in 2016. Dead and dying trees are replaced with native tree species at a 1-to-3 ratio, with 1 tree removed and 3 trees planted. By the end of 2021, approximately 26,000 trees have been planted. Part of the tree planting program that DPR is very proud of is the Tree Plotter Inventory web application. This program will be used to track not only how many trees are planted, but where, the species, tree health, with associated photos of the trees, and many other factors. The goal of this program is to have a full inventory of all trees on DPR properties. This tool will help DPR keep track of the trees and chart their health and distribution and allow for any adaptive management strategies that might be needed to ensure that the trees are successfully thriving. The 157 mapped trees on Almonte Park, as you can see on the slide, as well as several types of reports that can be generated, can be seen. DPR conducts land stewardship on all 30 county preserves in the South County Plan, as well as environmental education outreach to county residents and visitors. The habitat restoration projects and the comprehensive tree program previously discussed are part of the land stewardship activities conducted on the county preserves. DPR's monitoring efforts have found that there are approximately 1,200 native plant and animal species on county preserves in all 3 plan areas. Over 180 of the 1,200 species are special status species. In the South County Plan area, 46 MSCP covered species have been documented on county preserves. TMP implementation includes rare plant monitoring, and Lakeside ceanothus, a medium-sized shrub, is found on 4 of our county preserves. Surveys between 2015 and 2021 show the species population at each preserve have increased and the populations are thriving. Species population numbers are greatly influenced by winter storms and will vary each year. When drought conditions are present, fewer plants in a population are expected the following spring. If a species population numbers decline during optimal rainfall years, adaptive management strategies are implemented and may include invasive plant species treatment or installation of enclosures to protect sensitive plant species if rabbits or deer grazing is occurring. Educational outreach goes hand in hand with our management of preserved lands and is a priority for DPR. Annually, DPR's education outreach helps thousands of San Diego visitors and residents connect with nature through a wide variety of programs. These programs include ranger-led hikes, Hawktober, and the Discovery Program. Parkology, a free cloud-based education tool, was launched in 2021 that is designed to teach teens ages 14 to 18 about the parks and recreation industry. Additional learning modules were launched in 2022. Social media is also a powerful tool that DPR utilizes to inform San Diego County residents and visitors of what is occurring on DPR's preserved lands. The main DPR Facebook page is ranked number 4 in the state against other counties. Our Twitter feed is ranked number 2 and only follows San Francisco's Twitter feed, which covers the city and county in the San Francisco area. The DPR Instagram account started in January 2020 and is growing its following. The county's MSCP implementation efforts also include private mitigation lands and development permits. Since 1998, the county has processed over 4,200 private development permits under the South County Plan. This includes 98 single-family residential projects and 3 industrial projects permitted by the county in 2021. To date, 6,730 acres has been preserved as a condition of private development projects or through hardline agreements as private mitigation lands in the South County Plan. In 2021, 20 acres of private mitigation lands were preserved, including 19 acres in the Otay Preserve owner-manager, known as POM, which is mitigation land jointly owned by the City of Chula Vista and the county. The county's Department of Planning and Development Services oversees the management of 38 private RMPs countywide. Those are resource management plans. In 2021, Private Resource Management Plan annual reports documented the occurrences of 24 unique MSCP covered species. There are many facets to our South County Subarea Plan: acquisition, management monitoring, restoration, outreach through environmental programs and social media, and providing trails for the public to connect with nature. Let me take you on a virtual hike through a portion of Tijuana River Valley Regional Park. Thank you very much. This concludes the county's presentation, and now I'll turn the presentation over to Mark Berninger at the City of San Diego. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate it. And yeah, thank you Thank you to all the members of this regional program for inviting us, the City of San Diego, to present on the city's habitat conservation efforts and the multiple species conservation program annual reporting for the year 2021. Like Jennifer said, my name is Mark Berninger. I'm the Natural Resource Manager for the City of San Diego's Open Space Division. My biology staff and our dedicated park rangers and the entire open space team work together to implement the city's required habitat management, sensitive species monitoring within our multiple habitat planning area on city-owned preserved lands. I'd also like to thank our planning staff, which includes Christy Forberger, Dan Monroe, and our new climate resiliency officer, Julia Chase, and one of our new associate planners, Kaylin. Also, we have PUD staff Kelsey Hall and Megan from our Public Utilities Department, and our Department of Real Estate Assets and Airport Management just hired a new MSCP biologist and environmental biologist, Frank Santana. So we're really excited to have Frank on board. So let's dive in here. There we go. All right. So we heard a lot with Di and Jennifer talked about the city's MSCP and the MSCP in general. I'll just give a brief rundown of what the city has here. We have 2 habitat conservations that cover the entire city. We have the City of San Diego's MSCP sub-area plan and the Vernal Pool Habitat Conservation Plan, and that is associated with the Vernal Pool Management and Monitoring Plan, known as the VP-HCP and the VP-MMP. City of San Diego's MSCP sub-area plan was prepared pursuant to the general outline developed with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, CDFW, and they're collectively referred to as wildlife agencies. And that was to meet requirements of the Habitat Conservation Planning under Section 10 of the Endangered Species Act and the California NCCP Act of 1992. So our city's MHPA was developed in cooperation with the wildlife agencies, property owners, developers, and environmental groups. Our MHPA delineates core biological resource areas and corridors that are targeted for conservation within our MHPA. And within the MHPA, limited development may occur in some of those areas. Our Vernal Pool Habitat Conservation Plan is intended to provide an effective framework to protect, enhance, and restore vernal pool resources while improving and streamlining environmental permitting processes for private and public projects. The plan is also a separate but complementary to the city's MSCP program and our sub-area plan. The Vernal Pool HCP covers 7 vernal pool species, including 5 plants and 2 animal species. Because the vernal pool species are listed under the Federal Endangered Species Act, as with the MSCP, the VPHCP allows city issue federal take permits at the local level. Sub-area plan covers, covers about 206,000 acres. The city's MHPA, the MHPA citywide includes about 57,100 acres of various habitats and species. Of the approximately 57,000 acres in the MHPA, 52,727 acres are required to be conserved by the time our 50-year permit expires in 2047. Our conserved lands is made up of open space owned by the city at the time of the MSCP adoption, land that has been subsequently dedicated in fee title to the city from private property owners, and lands purchased by the city by utilizing different conservation funds, grants, and private development mitigation obligations. For example, the city has a habitat acquisition fund, and that consists of mitigation monies currently being utilized to purchase lands in East Elliott, which is a portion of the Mission Trails Regional Park. Each year, the city is required to report to the wildlife agencies habitat gains and losses, as well as habitat management, species monitoring, and overall implementation efforts of the MSCP. In the 2021 MSCP annual report, we detail our progress towards achieving that goal of 52,727 acres to be preserved within our MHPA prior to the expiration of our permit in 2047. In developing the annual report, the City of San Diego utilizes Habitrack. It's a GIS extension developed by the CDFW for tracking losses and gains of habitat as a result of private and public development. In 2021, the city recorded a total of habitat gain of 238 acres. 145 acres were inside the MHPA. 93 acres were outside the MHPA. A total habitat loss for 2021 was 212 acres. 23 acres were lost inside the MHPA, and 189 acres were lost outside the MHPA. The city implements incentive strategies within the MSCP subarea plan that prioritizes habitat gains inside the MHPA and focus those habitat losses outside the MHPA. This ensures that the requirement of the MSCP implementing agreement that each year development is in step with habitat conservation. As previously mentioned, we're in year 24 of our annual MSCP reporting. This is our 24th year reporting. On the graphic you see on your screen here, the blue represents that we have met 97% of our conservation goal, with just over 51,300 acres conserved or obligated to be conserved so far. The obligated lands make up about 15,000 acres. Obligated lands make up about 15,000 acres of the blue area and consist of watershed and cornerstone lands in our jurisdiction, but outside our municipal boundaries. These include areas like Lake Hodges and San Pasqual, Otay Lakes and San Vicente reservoirs, and places like Morone Valley down on the border with Mexico. As you can see by the orange sliver there, we have less than 1,400 acres to go, or about 3% to conserve by 2047. So we're well on our way. In addition to conserved habitat in the MHPA, the city has conserved about 3,100 acres outside the MHPA, and these conservation areas are important and they act as refugia for biological diversity within the city of San Diego. You can see here a map of the city's MHPA preserve. Previously was only available online through the public through SanGIST, which is sponsored by Sandag. In 2020, the planning department launched its own web-based mapping tool to easily allow access to the general public to view the MHPA boundary. Layers available in this map include the MHPA boundary, conservation status, and regional vegetation mapping. So searches can be done by your property, the property assessor's property number or your address, or just by navigating the map to the specific area you're concerned about. We also have a similar mapping tool available to the public to view vernal pool resources and associated vernal pool preserve lands that are preserved by. These are in the Vernal Pool HCP interactive map. As you can see here, the green area represents an existing baseline areas of conserved MHPA and other conserved lands. The yellow areas represent the additional 275 acres that the VP HCP added to our hardline MHPA preserve, and the dark green and yellow areas that the dark green and yellow areas or will be that are conserved, and the lighter green and yellow areas represent areas that are about 75% conserved under our habitat conservation plans and environmentally sensitive land regulations. The city manages about 40,000 acres of public open space, which would really be nothing without actively managing it. 3 city departments manage these areas: Park and Rec Open Space, our Public Utilities Department, and our Department of Real Estate Assets and Airport Management. Beginning in 2020, the MSCP management report was reformatted into an online story map. It's a more interactive and and offers better user experiences, which details our management activities for the city's conserved lands. And I want to give a big shout out to our MSCP biologist and Sarah Allen for leading this effort in our open space division, and all those folks who helped contribute to this project and creating this brand new expanded user experience. And we'll kind of run through that here in just real quick. This is an example of a screenshot of how our story map looks. This one being for our Los Penasquitos Ranger District. It includes an interactive map and tiles detailing the management activities that occurred within each district. You're able on the top there to go to each district by clicking on the tiles, or if you choose, you can scroll down from the introduction to the very end and absorb all this great information as you're going through. So, as I mentioned, management is performed by several different departments here in the city. Our PUD department manages our cornerstone lands and the city reservoirs. Parks and Rec manages the city's MHPA lands, including regional parks such as Mission Trails, Tecolote Canyon, Otay River Valley, and they provide education to schools and public, and they are just a vital resource, our ranger staff, to providing education to our public. The table here at the bottom of the slide is contained within our management report. It's a quick look at the summary of how many management actions that occurred in 2021. You can see some of the most notable things on here is trash. We, with our partners and our staff, removed almost 1,100,000 pounds of trash from our open space and preserve areas, which is just a monumental undertaking, as everyone knows. Some other examples of that occurred in our district include vernal pool management, native plant propagation, invasive species control, and specific management requirements of endangered plants. We reported this year we installed 106 new signs, about 740 linear feet of fence, repaired about 100,000 linear feet of trail that had maintenance or repairs. We formally completed about 4.5 acres of habitat restoration, completed 16 full acres of invasive weed control, installed about 60 pounds of native seed, and about 3,000 native plants were installed, and close to 162 homeless encampments were removed from our open space areas this year. Parks and Rec Open Space Division, we also prepare and implement natural resource management plans, or NRMPs. These NRMPs fulfill the MSCP's implementing agreement requirement to prepare area-specific management directives consistent with MSCP directives for the MHPA preserve lands. To date, 7 NRMPs have been completed and are currently implemented. Future NRMPs that are currently being prepared and are anticipated to be brought forward in the very near future include Crest Canyon Open Space Park, Tecolote Canyon Natural Park, Otay Valley Regional Park, and Pacific Highlands Ranch / Gonzales Canyon. Our open space division is going to continue in the preparations of these NRMPs as we have funding and staffing levels allow that. They are very labor intensive and require a lot of attention from our staff and folks involved with them, as you can imagine. For property acquisitions, the city is continuously working with property owners and outside agencies to acquire and accept habitat for the purpose of habitat conservation and to achieve our goals of conservation required under the MSCP. The planning department, in coordination with our Department of Real Estate and Asset and Airport Management and Parks and Rec, we utilize grants, our habitat acquisition funds, and any other means to purchase land for MSCP conservation. In 2020, the planning department utilized funds awarded through Section 6 Recovery Land Acquisition Grant to successfully acquire a 1-acre property located in Otay Mesa for the purposes of vernal pool habitat conservation. In 2022, just this past July, our Habitat Acquisition Fund was utilized to successfully acquire a 25-acre property in the East Elliott portion of our Mission Trails Regional Park to go into our habitat conservation, to add to our habitat conservation goals. Additionally, we're really anticipating to acquire several other properties, including the associated endowment funds that proposed to be dedicated or donated or accepted by the city. These anticipated citywide land dedications and donations results in over 655 acres of additional conserved habitat and over $3 million of endowment funds to support those long-term management funds. And we're working diligently to get a lot of these done in the very near future. And so please bear with us for all of you folks that are involved with these acquisitions. We're working really hard to get these done and completed really soon. Another great thing that we have coming up here is we'll soon begin work on a coastal resiliency master plan. It's an implementation action of the city's climate resilient SD plan. It aims to improve the ability of our coastal habitat and communities to respond and to recover from climate change impacts. This plan will include proposed concepts of several potential nature-based solutions for locations around the city of San Diego's coast to increase our resilience to climate change, while also benefiting wildlife, habitat, and natural coastal resources. Many of the city's critical assets, including open space, habitat, conservation areas, and community resources, are identified by the city's vulnerability assessments as highly vulnerable to sea level rise and erosion. These vulnerable areas are also home to populations of endangered, threatened, and key sensitive species protected by the city's MSCP. These species include the western snowy plover, California leaf tern, salt marsh bird's beak, and Torrey pines. The Coastal Resiliency Master Plan will analyze several locations along the coast, evaluate the feasibility of conceptual designs for nature-based solutions for 5 of those locations, and ultimately select one as the most feasible pilot project to start designing. With that, I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity to present on our MSCP this year. On the screen, you'll see several links that we discussed today, and all these are available on the city's Biodiverse SD website. And that kind of concludes my presentation right now, but I did want to just briefly show some of our websites and where you might be able to find them and kind of some of the things that are available here. This is one of the great things we've put together recently. It's MSCP Covered Wildlife Story Map. If you come through here, you can get a really good idea of all the different plants and animals that are covered by our MSCP program. This again is our City of San Diego's planning website, the Biodiverse SD. You can see they've done a great job of developing this website with all the stuff and all the information you may need. If you have questions, concerns, please just go to this website. If you can't find it here, email myself or Christy Forberger, our development project manager over at the MSCP Planning. Another great thing we can share and with folks at some point here is our rare plant monitoring data dashboards. These include locations of our rare plants, and while we don't share the locations directly for some of our most rare plants, some of them you can walk by on a regular basis, including some of these rare Nuttall's acmaspon, which grows in the riprap along the around Mission Bay and the San Diego River area. And with that, I'd like to pass it on to Karen Drew with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And thanks everybody for coming, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.
So again, my name is Karen. Sorry about that. I'm a senior environmental scientist supervisor. I supervise the NCCP program for Region 5, which is the South Coast region. I thought I would start out by sharing our South Coast mission statement. I think, you know, we do have mission statements and we try to achieve those goals. So I'm going to talk about a few items that we highlighted in 2021, including some of the work we've done at Rancho Humol, some of the work that's being done at the Ramona grasslands, some of the work that's being done in our ecological reserves, and also provide a few updates that are more like breaking news since 2021. In Rancho Humol, one of the programs that we are working on is the aquatic invasive species removal. The purpose of this is we tried to introduce some pond turtles back in 2014, and we didn't get recruitment. So we are trying to prep this area by removing species such as the crayfish, some bullfrogs, African clawed frogs. Rancho Humol is located on this map to the right is where the I-94 is. So the aquatic invasive removal is quite labor intensive. As you can see, there's a lot of crayfish, and this is not a one-time removal. We go out there quite often using various different nets, trying to net the crayfish to get the population down. Also in Rancho Humol, we are working on burrowing owl management. In 2007, there was the installation of artificial burrows were initiated. In 2008, we completed the land management plan that identified burrowing owls as a species to be considered for reintroduction, including assessing and managing predator threats. In 2013, brush piles were added. This was to encourage the California ground squirrel population to be established there. In 2014, we initiated some grazing. The purpose of this grazing is not commercial grazing. The purpose of this grazing was to remove the excessive vegetation. This has been an ongoing way of us being working on that, removing excessive vegetation that interferes with the burrowing owls. In 2017, we initiated some artificial burrows. We retrofitted the ones that had been initially installed. And between 2018 and 2021, the translocation and we translocated owls. We had burrow installation and maintenance, which include assessing tunnel and determine the chamber conditions for accessibility for the owls, to clear excessive debris, clear vegetation, address flooding issues and erosion issues, replace any buckets that need to be start to deteriorate, and then we documented the use. Just kind of a side note, as you can see from some of these pictures, our biologists have become really good at learning how to install and actually take down aviaries, and they've become really good at using weed whip equipment. It's a lot of labor that the biologists are doing out there for this. So Rancho Humol, we have two sites that we tend to concentrate on. We have our Field 7, and then we have what we call the BOMA, which is the Burrowing Owl Habitat Management Area. And this is where we're working extremely closely with our partners, especially at the San Diego Zoo Alliance, where these areas are places that we can translocate burrowing owls. We conduct supplemental feeding. We provide mice for the young. We also, or excuse me, for the owls. We conduct nest monitoring. We conduct banding, working very closely with the Zoo Alliance. We also, again, the site vegetation management, as I mentioned, includes weed whipping, and we also monitor the ground squirrel population. And thanks to Suzanne and others, but Suzanne provided a lot of data for us this year in this presentation at the zoo. We had 31 burrowing owls return from previous translocations. The top picture you can see is one of the ones that we helped band. In Rancho Humol in 2021 in particular, we had 32 adults. We had one new wild burrowing owl arrive, which is always very exciting. And we had 5 successful nests. We are continuing to monitor the burrowing owls, and the department is committed to doing so. Again, another picture showing of the banding that we are doing to help them. One of the things that we are doing along with different grazing management, we are looking at the issue with the stick-type fleas. This did have an issue, we believe, on some of the fledglings and possible issue with why we had only 5 successful nests, but we're still continuing to monitor and looking at those. Moving on to the Ramona grasslands, we established a new breeding node in conjunction with our partners. Previously, the only breeding node was in Rancho Homol, although they were thought to be burring owls were thought to be widespread throughout San Diego County with their diminishing numbers. The importance of many of the partners, including with the service, the zoo, and many others, the idea was to establish another breeding node so that all the focus was not on just at Rancho Homol. And we did have an aviary, we translocated owls, and 20 burring owls were fledged. Moving on to our grassland restoration, and I want to thank Nick and our lands department in particular for providing some of these slides. It was started in 2018. It includes 2 components. There's a 20-acre grassland restoration focused here, and there was also a pond improvement. The purpose is to enhance the habitat to ensure greater habitat value than what currently it exists, create greater species diversity, decrease non-native cover, and provide additional quality habitat for native species. These efforts have been funded by the State Wildlife Grant, which has been available from 2018 and will be available to 2022. The restoration is working on removing bromus and converting it to stipa, purple needlegrass, and other native grassland species. The management includes hand weeding, herbicide spot treatment, watering. The irrigation was installed in 2021. Although this is not related to 2021, I did want to provide, take this opportunity to provide a couple of key updates. One of these is the terrestrial invertebrate in relation to the California Endangered Species Act. The state has not been able to petition or have people petition and list in terrestrial invertebrates, but as we see terrestrial invertebrate populations in decline, CDFW historically was not able to list because of the fish criteria in our Fish and Game Code. But between the petitioning and the subsequent litigation between conservation groups and farmers, various groups, ultimately we resolved that fish definition could include terrestrial invertebrates. The courts have decided that fish, the way that fish was written, it was interpreted designation and can now be used to convey listing of terrestrial invertebrates. So in particular for the crotch bumblebee, it is considered a candidate species at this time. And as far as other species such as the kino or other butterflies, that action had not been taken by the commission, so that will have to be re-petitioned to be considered for candidacy. So we anticipate petitioners may decide to resubmit that. But this is exciting news for us. And I also wanted to bring up some changes to our Wildlife Conservation Board. I know we're always looking for money for different projects, and it has 3 functions, including land acquisition. But the big key is that now you can apply continuously. They're accepting solicitations. It's not a specific date, so applications will be accepted at any time. And what we in Region 5 are asking, and we suggest, highly recommend, is that you work with us. We want to be on the front end of these grant applications so that we can help them, because ultimately WCB will come to us and ask us for our thoughts on priority. So we would like to help you get your applications to us, to work with us so that we can get them so they become very competitive. And again, this can be used. So in 2021, we had a Foss Lake acquisition, which I know is hard to see, but it's right near Camp Pendleton in this red area. And this was one of our 2021 WCB acquisitions. CDFW continues to do many different types of wildlife surveys. We conduct fairy shrimp monitoring at Del Mar Mesa. We've also been involved with the Hermes copper surveys in various locations, especially within our lands and other areas. But we are continuing to and will continue to do surveys. And of course, all this work couldn't be done without a lot of partners and a lot of people. But I especially want to say thank you to Nick in Lands for the pictures for the grasslands, and Emily and Gray and Melissa have been doing a lot of the burrowing owl for us, and Emily's been coordinating a lot of the Rancho Jamol. And I especially want to thank Melissa Stepik because she helped greatly with this presentation and getting a lot of the pictures together, and I want to thank her for that. And with that, I want to go ahead and turn this over to Summer at the San Diego County Water Authority. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. All right, let me just share my screen here. And hopefully everyone can see that. Good morning. Like Karen said, my name is Summer Edelberg. I'm Principal Water Resource Specialist with the San Diego County Water Authority. I'm here to talk to you about the San Diego County Water Authority's Subregional NCCP HCCP 2021 update. There we go. So the Water Authority's Board of Directors approved a multiple species NCCP HCP on December 8th, 2010. The plan became effective on December 30th, 2011, concurrent with the issuance of a federal incidental take permit and a natural community conservation plan permit. So we just had our 10-year anniversary last year. The Water Authority's plan has two primary principles. One is to conservation of multiple species and their habitats by establishing a series of interconnected habitat preserves at the regional landscape scale. And two, providing a streamlined method for the Water Authority to comply with the State and Federal Endangered Species Act. The Water Authority's plan provides a framework under which we can perform specific activities associated with our infrastructure and land holdings. These are considered covered activities. And this occurs within approximately a 992,000 acre plan area. The plan area encompasses the Water Authority's service area in the lands that extend northward into Riverside County within a 1 mile area on either side of the first San Diego Aqueduct and the second San Diego Aqueduct, as well as a 1 mile area around each of the right-of-way and exterior boundaries of some of our facilities within San Diego County. Covered activities are organized into three primary categories. First is capital improvement program projects for construction and expansion of our facilities. Second, it's operation and maintenance of existing facilities. And third, it's preserve area management activities. The Water Authority plan includes coverage for 63 special status species, including 28 plant species and 38 wildlife species. This is a 55-year permit that, like I said, was implemented in 2011 and will go through 2066. 2021, there were no CIP covered activities that were completed or closed out during the 2021 reporting period. One CIP covered activity was initiated during the 2021 period and is ongoing. That's the Hawk Mesa Storage Reservoir Project. One CIP covered activity was initiated during the 2020 reporting period and remained ongoing during 2021, and that's the Mission Trails Flow Regulatory Structure 2 project. During 2021, we initiated and completed 6 O&M covered activities. All 6 of these projects, or none of these 6 projects, resulted in temporary or permanent impacts to habitat or species. So no mitigation was required for those. For our CIP and O&M activities, we conduct post-construction restoration projects. So we had 2 projects that were completed in the 2021 reporting period. And like I said, we do preserve area management activities. So for 2021, we prepared construction drawings and specifications for the upcoming San Luis Rey Habitat Management Restoration Project. We continued ongoing maintenance and monitoring of our habitat management areas and our mitigation management areas, which I'll talk about in just a minute. And then Mark Berninger with City of San Diego touched on this a little bit, but we coordinated with City of San Diego on the Mission Trails Regional Park vernal pool mitigation site agreement with the city. This is approximately just under 2-acre mitigation site that contains 26 vernal pools. The Water Authority Board of Directors approved the negotiated endowment, approved the ability to transfer the property to the City of San Diego into the vernal pool HCP, and then approved our ability to enter into an agreement with the city for the ongoing conservation and management of that property. So that will continue, that work will continue in 2023. So like I said, we finished 10 years of our 55-year permit, so we're about 5th way into the permit. In that 10 years, we've completed 20 covered CIP projects, 9 of the 20 are pipeline reline projects, and others were just facility upgrades and management. We've completed 47 covered O&M activities. These are things like pipeline drain downs for internal inspections, and we did have 4 urgent repairs over the last 4 years, or 10 years. The Water Authority's preserve area consists of more than 1,900 acres of natural habitat lands. We call these habitat management areas within San Diego County. This is to provide habitat-based mitigations for its past and future projects and provide mitigation for future projects from O&M and CIP projects. These areas are managed by various entities, including Fish and Wildlife Service, CDFW, and the county, and some others. The Water Authority also has similar agreements with entities to manage approximately 1,200 acres of other conserved mitigation lands that we call management mitigation areas. And those compose part of the environmental baseline of the conserved lands, but are excluded from the plan's preserve area. The Water Authority must ensure that implementation of the mitigation and conservation measures on a plan basis is roughly proportional in time and extent to the impact of habitat or covered species authorized under our plan. So based on our current planned activities, we estimate our rough set of estimate shows that we are ahead by upland mitigation, broken down into tier 1, we're ahead by approximately 41 acres. Tier 2 habitat, which includes coastal sage scrub, we're ahead by 474 acres. And tier 3 habitats, which are some of the more chaparral habitats, we're ahead by 96 acres. We report this on an annual basis, and this will be included in our 2022 annual report that will be available for public review and sometime in March. Next big preserve activity for us, it will be implementation of the San Luis Rey Habitat Mitigation Site. This is a project to enhance and restore wetland and riparian habitats along the San Luis Rey River. We will be converting approximately 40 acres of agricultural land into native habitats that will be planted will include oak woodland, coastal sage scrub in the upland elevations, and then riparian habitats in the lower elevations that get closer to the San Luis Rey River. The Water Authority, we've completed the CEQA and design, and we're working on obtaining the regulatory permits that will be required. We are anticipating this will be an advanced permittee responsible mitigation bank, and ultimately it will result in approximately 20 acres of tier 1 riparian habitat mitigation for the Water Authority. And with that, I'm going to close out my screen and I will turn it over to Kim Smith with SANDAG. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Summer. I will start to share my screen here. So hopefully everyone can see that. So good morning, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Kim Smith and I'm a senior regional planner here at SANDAG, and I also manage the environmental mitigation program. So today I'm really excited to highlight the work that has been accomplished for regional habitat conservation under the EMP. And this is an annual report for 2022, but most of these activities really began in 2021. So this annual report it's pretty cool. It's an interactive PDF, so I'm really excited about that. And you can find it on our new SANDAG website under Regional Habitat Conservation. So just a quick reminder for those not familiar with the Transnet Environmental Mitigation Program, This program provides funding to mitigate habitat impacts from our regional and local transportation projects, and also funding for regional land management and biological monitoring. And it does this by acquiring and managing large tracts of lands with native habitats early in advance of those transportation projects that need mitigation. And this really has allowed us to reduce overall cost, accelerate the delivery of those transportation infrastructure projects, implement our regional habitat conservation plans, and reduce the listing of species as threatened or endangered. So just a brief overview to date, the EMP has helped to preserve a total of 9,215 acres of land with our regional partners. That is $164 million in open space investments, with 33.2 million leveraged from our conservation partners. Mitigation has been secured for over 3/4 of our early action projects in Transnet. We've awarded 117 land management grants totaling $16.6 million to local organizations and jurisdictions. In addition, we've completed 7 land acquisition grants totaling $20 million and contributed $46.5 million to regional management and monitoring since the inception of the EMP. So on to the vision. So in 2021, SANDAG and our regional partners worked really hard to identify a future vision for habitat conservation in San Diego County, building on past efforts implemented through the Multiple Species Conservation Program and the EMP. The vision is really simple: to protect, connect, and respect. So protect existing native species through strategic acquisition of habitats, management and monitoring of critical habitat areas identified in our regional habitat conservation plans. Connect habitat areas through wildlife corridors and linkages, as well as connecting people to local species and natural habitats. And then respect, encourage community respect for natural lands through increased public outreach and education of San Diego's unique biodiversity. And the great news is that in 2021, our regional plan identified $3 billion to help implement this habitat conservation vision. So on to habitat conservation. So this really highlights those mitigation projects that we've undertaken for regional and local transportation projects throughout the county. So the first project I'd like to highlight, and probably most of you are familiar with, is the San Elijo Lagoon Restoration Project. This is a project that's part of our larger I-5 North Coast Corridor program. It just wrapped up this past year, and what this project did was it restored tidal connectivity across the lagoon, thus increasing biodiversity and water quality. And as you can see from some of the pictures, we've had some new species show up in the lagoon, like octopus, needlefish, and scallops, and we even have sea lions that are moving underneath the I-5 highway into the eastern basin east of I-5. And so it completed this last year, like I said, and our long-term biological monitoring is underway. Moving on to the San Dieguito Lagoon. This is another wetland restoration project. It's also mitigation for their larger I-5 North Coast Corridor program. Construction began this past year. It's 84, we're creating 84 acres of coastal wetland just to the east of the Del Mar Fair, east of I-5. And our partners on this project include Caltrans, who is actually implementing the construction contract, San Dieguito JPA, who will be taking the lands with an endowment in perpetuity, the City of San Diego, and Southern California Edison. And then moving up into northern San Diego County, we've got our Rancho Lilac property. This is a 902-acre property that was acquired in 2014 by Caltrans for the Transnet net benefit requirement. And it's located in Valley Center. It contains very unique biological resources and also 27 historic structures, and it's really considered a jewel to that community. An RFP was released earlier this year for the preparation of a resource management plan and the eventual ownership management of this property. And we hope to award that phase 1, which is preparation of the RMP, in January of 2023. And then moving down to South County, this is one of our vernal pool mitigation sites down in southern San Diego County. It was mitigation for regional and local transportation projects, including SANDAG's Midcoast and the Poinsettia Station Improvement Project. I believe it's in year 3 of monitoring, and we already have the federally endangered San Diego fairy shrimp and the San Diego mesa mint occupying this vernal pool habitat. So on to scientific research. A big part of our EMP program is to provide research to better inform land managers about best management and monitoring practices for rare species and their habitats across the San Diego region. This is the large part of the work that our regional entity, the San Diego Management and Monitoring Program, facilitates and conducts. And so this year, or this past year, just to highlight what we've been working on with our regional partners. See if I can get this to play. So we continue to look at barriers for wildlife movement across our transportation systems for mountain lions, including testing hazing deterrents. We've partnered with UC Berkeley to study the effectiveness of grazing to control invasive species, decrease fire risk, and provide suitable habitat. We continue to work on the management of 7 rare plant species, and even in 2021, we won an award from the San Diego Association of Environmental Professionals for Outstanding Technical Report. And then finally, our work on restoration for the southwestern pond turtle continues with over 20 baby turtles spotted at the Sequan Ecological Reserve last spring. So moving on to environmental stewardship. So SANDAG's very successful land management grant program assists land managers with the protections of rare species and their habitats. This year, the 10th cycle call for projects was released in January, totaling $2.4 million. Funding approvals were received from the SANDAG board back in October, and we're currently working with our future grantees to execute grant agreements in early 2023. And these are just some of the past grant projects, and some of them are still ongoing, that we have worked with different entities around the region. And then finally on to regional coordination. SANDAG and our regional entity, the San Diego Management Monitoring Program, collaborated with regional stakeholders to develop metrics to measure the overall health of our preserve system. And I'm really excited to report that we have a final preserve metrics report and a metrics dashboard that you're going to be hearing about next from Emily Perkins. But before I turn the presentation over to Emily, I just wanted to say thank you to SDMMP and all of our regional partners for their input and for all their hard work that they put in this effort. This has been an over a year-long effort, and I'm really excited for everyone to see what Emily's going to present. So I'll stop sharing my screen here, and then I will turn this over to Emily Perkins from the San Diego Management and Monitoring. Emily?
Thank you. Get this up. Okay, is that everything's good? Nobody said anything, so I'm gonna believe it.
It looks good, Emily.
Thanks. Thanks, Kim. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about one of SDMMP's main accomplishments for this year, the final report for our preserve metrics and our new website, including a dashboard displaying the preserve metrics information. Oh, I gotta click on it. This project started back based on an ITAC audit recommendation to the EMP working group. And the recommendation was to specifically develop metrics to understand the status and trend of the overall health of the preserve system, and then formalize a system of to communicate the complex performance results. And so I'm going to give a little bit of background on this project, which some people here probably have heard before, but I want to make sure everyone's on the same page. Starting back in November of 2019, we started with our first workshop that was at an EMP working group meeting, where we got expert input on what types of indicators and metrics should be included in the report. We worked to create a framework, and I'll show you what the design and the framework of this report is, and had draft mock-ups through 2020. In 2021, we wrote the report and had a draft go to the EMP working group in June. Since then, and for all of 2022, we have been responding to comments from reviewers and revising the report, as well as developing new website pages and the dashboard, which I will show momentarily. Our report is based on a report by the group called One TAM, which is the group that manages Mount Tamalpais in the Bay Area. And they put together a system that includes indicators and then metrics underneath each indicator. Our report has 19 indicators that are categorized into either species, vegetation communities, or threats. And then each one of those indicators has one or more metrics, and we have a total of 48 metrics. Each metric and then indicator is given a condition, trend, and a confidence. The condition can be either good, caution, concern, significant concern. Trends are either improving, no change, declining, or unknown. And then the confidence, which is based on the quality of the data and how comprehensive the spatial extent of the data is, can be either high, moderate, or low. The indicators in white text were included in this version, and then future versions will include additional indicators that it was determined we did not have sufficient data to develop metrics on at this point, but will be included in the future. So you can see species. We have some looking at landscape species, some looking at rare and specialists, and then some that are tied to a specific vegetation community or habitat. We have 4 vegetation communities included, and we have 4 threats included as well. To give you a quick indication of what this looks like, this is an example of chaparral. We have 3 metrics looking at how much of chaparral has been conserved, then looking at the ecological integrity of that chaparral, and then focusing specifically on fires. And each of these metrics is a value. So these are measurable objective metrics. And based on that value, they're put into a condition of good, caution, concern, or significant concern. When we have data available, we can look at the trend compared to baseline or other years of data to show if the trend is improving. I think we've just seen the conserved has been improving quite a bit from all of the acquisitions going on, but our fire frequency has been declining in condition, meaning that we actually have more fire in this case. Once those metrics were set, we used these values to come up with an overall condition, trend, and confidence for chaparral. So in this case, the overall condition was caution. The trend is unknown because of the second one, and then the confidence is moderate. As Kim mentioned, we actually have the final report for this is out now, and this is the website, and I can paste this into the chat after I'm done as well, so you don't have to try to type that in. But it is officially up and done, which is, it's taken us, you saw our timeline, it's taken us a long time to get through all these reviews, which have been really good to go through and unify our report and add in tons of information. So I can say officially done. On Tuesday, officially, our website will be completely updated at sdmmp.com. I'm going to go ahead and show our website live as long as it works. For today, this is an internal page that I'm showing. So today, if you go to sdmmp.com, you will not see this page just yet, but we're going to start putting it all up probably today and Monday so that it will be all up and functioning by Tuesday. And on Tuesday, I will be giving a longer presentation to it is not called the EMP Working Group anymore, now that I've said that like 6 times. Whatever they're called now, the Regional Conservation Habitat Task Force. So if you want to see more of this, you can come on Tuesday and see that as well. But this is what our new page will look like. We have a new section of our website called Metrics, where you can see everything from the report. It's designed in a way to sort of give you upfront high-level information first, and then you can dig down more and more and more based on how much information you want. If you want all of the details, including all of the data and methods, everything is in the report, especially attached as the appendix. On the website, you're going to find a subset of that information. So you can always dig down more. So at the top here, you can kind of get an overview of our 19 indicators, and they're symbolized by the condition that they fell into here. The main thing that we expect people to use is our dashboard. I'm going to show that, and it's going to work. So when you first come, you get sort of an overview of the report, looking again at the percent of indicators that fell into each condition. Some other statistics about how many, where we are in the conservation status of the plans. This includes the MSCP and the MHCP together. And this does as well, looking at our covered species. We also have information about all the people that have worked with us to put this together. And I do want to say that I counted at least 60 projects that we use data from to compile these metrics. And I think that, excuse me, looking at a lot of other groups who have put these types of projects together, one thing that really makes us stand out is how much data we have behind it. And so hearing everybody who's presented all of that data collection, that is what we're using to drive this database. And so I think San Diego is unique in how many people we have working together to collect that data. So I'll show a quick example here. Down on the left, we have our 19 indicators. And you can click on the indicator and it will take you to an overview. We're going to have a lot of tabs across our website now, so you always make sure to look up here at our tabs to see what information you have. This is going to show you in coastal sage scrub the overall condition of concern with an unknown trend and moderate confidence, and you can see the breakdown of those 3 metrics that are the same as chaparral but with different values. For each metric, you can go to a tab, and this is going to show you a map of the data as well as a graph showing you the trend over time if it's available and showing you how this metric has changed. So in this case, the actual metric value is the percent of baseline coastal sage scrub conserved, and you can see how it changed from 22% in 1995 up to 46% in 2020. These maps are interactive, so you can zoom in and get information if you click on it to get the actual property name and ownership and when it was conserved. So you can zoom in and see that as well. You can look at ecological integrity on a map. And I will say that this layer of ecological integrity, which specifically in this case was defined as the percent of coastal sage scrub considered high integrity class based on the percent shrub cover. I won't go into the details, but this was created using LiDAR and NAPE imagery, and it is officially out as a data release through the USGS that can be downloaded, so I can provide that information as well. But you can also see it as an online map here. It is a big file. It takes a minute to load this one, but you can get in and really look at the details of your sites. And we can also update this information with new imagery as NAPE imagery comes out. So that's another thing that we've finished this year. And then finally, looking at the fire frequency, again, you can look at the map to really zoom in and look at areas that have been burned, as many as 6 times in the last 30 years. And look at how that has changed over time. So from a 30-year period from 1965 to 1995 compared to 1989 to 2019, you can see the amount of unburned area has dropped significantly, where the amount of area burned 3 or more times has increased pretty significantly. And so you can also view the sources for all of this on the map using the info tab. So if you want to go back to any of those sources individually, that's here. And if you want to download the full report to get all of the explanation of why we chose this metric and exactly how it was calculated, you can also download the report PDF as well. Finally, we have some additional resources. And this includes links to our project pages as well as our objectives that are part of our management and monitoring strategic plan. Those objectives will be updated soon as well. And so those new objectives will be included in this dashboard as well. Usually there's also citation lists where you can go to our library and download all of the citations directly from our library as long as we're allowed to share them publicly. I think that is all I have. So if at the end, feel free to ask questions. I believe now I will turn it over to Robert Fisher. Although, oh, there he is.
Yep.
Let's stop sharing.
Hey,
Right.
Robert.
Activities we've done over the last 3 years, I guess, because I can't remember even when we had the last meeting. I looked at 2019 and this is kind of stuff since then. So we'll talk about arroyo toads. The monitoring we were going to do as a big group effort in 2020, but then COVID hit. The pond turtle restoration activities, some of which have been discussed by both Kim and Karen, and then Golden Eagle, the next steps there, getting towards this management plan, and then the wildfire resource assessment program we started. Okay, so one of the goals is to get towards recovery for the arroyo toads. We worked in 2017 through about 2020 with a large group of people to really get a current status of arroyo toads across their range in the US, and then we've just published a paper on that, and now we're working forward with Fish and Wildlife Service on an action plan for the arroyo toad to feed into their 2023 5-year review. I'm going to show some papers. All the papers I show should be available through the SDMMP website. So if you have any questions, just email me. If you can't find them, most of them are all public as well. So you should just be able to download them from the journal. So we published this paper earlier this year and determined about 30% of the populations known at the time of listing for the arroyo toad might be extirpated at this point. And so there's a downward trend even post listing in that species, and a lot of it we think is tied to the drought. We've published a variety of other papers over the last 15 years or so on arroyo toads, 20 years, and really building a solid literature on the species. And a big part of that goal is to then feed into this kind of these recovery actions and get towards an action plan for the species to turn it around. Starting in 2020 as part of the SDMMP program, we were doing San Diego-wide monitoring for the arroyo toad, and we were supposed to be doing this with partners and do training. And then that kind of fell apart with COVID, and our team took on the monitoring at everybody's sites. And so I'll step through this design real quick. We used Huck 8's hydrologic unit codes first to divide the landscape into where our toads might be and where they might not be. Then we filtered it through Huck 10. As you get the lower numbers, you get a smaller piece of landscape. So Huck 10, the gray is the areas that could have arroyo toads or do have arroyo toads. And then for our sampling frame, we really drilled into this Huck 12 level, which is at the scale where you might actually be able to do management. In green were occupied hydrologic units, and then yellow are there are discovery units or sites that could have historically had toads and still might have habitat for toads. And so then we developed a stratified sampling design and then implemented it over the last couple of years. As we know, we've had this extreme drought, so let's call blue baseline rain, like normal rainfall. Here's in the East County, Cuyamaca. You can see 2020, the amount of rain, and then you can see how extreme the drought was in 2021. And so that's definitely impacting the amount of water flow on the surface, and then the amount, and then the detection of our detection for arroyo toads across the landscape. So show some quick results. These are arroyo toad surveys across this randomized sampling frame from 2020. The Camp Pendleton work is funded by the Department of Defense, and so we have a more intensive sampling, but it's the same protocol, so we can integrate all of the data into the analysis. So red is where we detected toads, white, those sites were dry, and then yellow, we didn't detect any toads in 2020. Here's 21. You see there's less red in 21. Like all these sites in the north part of Pendleton are just white and dry. And then here's 2022. We basically didn't intersect any toads at all in the South County. So that's pretty scary. And we're hoping to better understand these trends. Some of the data we've collected, we're able to actually better understand and quantify the parameters that for presence of toads. And because before we always talk about, oh, they need these shallow water, they need sand, gravel. So this is going to help determine kind of what is good toad habitat. And as we go towards, as we move forward to think about these features. So these are positive parameters, the negative parameters of toad detection. And then we know from our previous work, the interaction with invasives. We've tried some experimental pulsed flows where we released a large amount of water out of Pyramid Lake for a short period of time to see if we can move invasives out of toad habitat as an experiment. And then as the drought continues to be dramatic and concerning, we haven't found any evidence of toads at Cuyamaca Rancho in the upper Sweetwater rivers in like 10 years now. And then we want to do these adaptive management experiments to see if we can deliver some resiliency for the populations. We want to potentially do some reintroductions within San Diego County, continue invasives removal, and then maybe do more experimental flooding. And then we're working with the service towards this 5-year review. Western pond turtles, I'll go through this briefly. We've been working with the service on their pre-listing for the pond turtles. We've got a lot of folks working on pond turtles. The Fish and Wildlife Service is under a legal mandate to make a decision on whether or not to list the pond turtles in 2023. Where it's not a covered species in habitat conservation plans, it'll be just a listed species. They're also in 2023 going to make a decision on the spadefoot toads. So we've been part of this process since 2018 on the pre-listing process, but then we're also doing recovery actions within the MSCP in San Diego County. And then they're doing a population viability analysis, the Fish and Wildlife Services. So surveys 2021-22, these are the surveys we've conducted. Here's where we found pond turtles. As you can see, like the number of pond turtle positive sites in the north is versus number of sites is much greater as we get further south. Our team has conducted a lot of these surveys. Some of it was funded by Fish and Wildlife Service, some of it's funded by Sandag. And then if we zoom into San Diego, you can see our surveys. And then we had one survey done by a Mexican team south of the border, but in the US on BLM lands at Tijuana Estuary, and that was Fauna helped us, Tijuana River, not estuary. Fauna helped us do those surveys. And then here's where we've detected pond turtles. We're focusing on identifying new sites, but then also revisiting old sites. Pine Valley is a site we came up with some population estimates in 2013, and that site, the water is so rare there that we can't even come up with a population estimate based now within the drought. So we had an estimate of a couple thousand turtles in 2013, and now less than 10 years later, there's, as far as we can tell, hardly any turtles left, and there's hardly any way to assess them. A couple of notable new things was that we've gotten some higher elevation records that we didn't have in the county before, especially Cuyamaca Rancho State Park, some upper San Diego River sites, and then Noble Canyon. And like I said, we're feeding into this larger analysis the service is doing for the listing package, where we brought together our 24 years of studies for the pond turtles, and then that's being done by this team at University of Florida and USGS for the Fish and Wildlife Service. We heard about Sycuan Peak, I think, earlier, so that's where we've been doing removal, and we're getting, Kim mentioned it, and then we're getting recovery of turtles. This is what the body size distribution looked like here, in red. When we first started there in like 2009, when we first started doing management actions, it was really adult biased. And then as we've done management actions there, we've got a lot more smaller turtles and really leveled out that curve, which is what we want, showing that there's recruitment going into the system. The other thing, by removing bullfrogs from the site, is we're seeing a body condition index increase. So here's a curve of body condition for turtles across all of our turtles in Southern California, pond turtles, and then the green dots are the turtles at Sycuan Peak. Once we remove bullfrogs, their body condition is increasing. There's more food available. They're becoming healthier. And then the population is increasing. Here's 2009 when we started management actions, and the population estimate was maybe 60 turtles or so. Now it's probably well over 100 turtles. So the population is increasing, which is awesome. And then Rancho Hamul, Karen mentioned, doing a lot of work, partnered with the department to help them meet their goals at that site. We've been publishing papers on the impacts on turtles so we can kind of continue to inform management as we move forward. Lots of partners and lots of places we're working on turtles. Golden eagles. We had some setbacks where our statistician left, and we now got a new statistician. So Jeff Tracy left our lab, and Sarah Thompson is the new person that's working with the eagle data in our shop. We've got a couple of new papers, one on why did eagles go far on long distance movements in birds, and we partner with the rest of the West on this, and so that includes our data from Southern California. But what you see is eagles don't cross water. The golden eagles don't. Then we came up with our first population estimate for Southern California. This has been funded by SANDAG and Cal Fish and Wildlife and Fish and Wildlife Service and beyond, and several other partners. And we came up with an estimate of about 60 pairs in Southern California, but the confidence interval is pretty wide because this work is being done during the drought, but there's somewhere between 19 and 151 pairs, but probably 60. What Sarah's had to do is go back and refilter all the data. So this just gives you a sense of how much data we have for eagles. So these on the left are the 50 eagles we've captured and tracked, and then on the bottom is the years of the dates. We actually have data from those, and then these different colors represent the ages. So we have a lot of data for eagles for Southern California. I'm going to show you these quick videos, but then I'm going to run late. Let me see if I can play it. This is now a pair of eagles flying together. So this is the Iron Mountain or the Rancho Cañada pair of eagles. And so you can see where they're sleeping together. Now they're sleeping apart. And then you can see how they're flying patterns. And so Sarah's been putting these together, and we're analyzing the eagles to understand kind of how pairs are interacting, but then understand how the community is interacting. All these eagles are flying at the same time, so it's temporally overlapping. So you can see some eagles bump into each other and hang out. Some eagles don't fly certain days because there's a lot of rain, so those long distance movements are days after a rain. So they sat, didn't go anywhere. Then the next day there's these big long distance movements. So it's really cool. I played the whole thing, but I think I'm going to run out of time. And let's see. So let me see if I can get to the next. There. And so one of the things we're analyzing now is where the eagles sleep at night. We already published on when they're active. So basically an eagle wakes up in the morning, it suns itself, and then it flies like around 10 or 11. So if you are doing a doesn't-let tour at 7 in the morning, you might be disturbing eagles because they might be sleeping in these trees. Some of these moves are when eagles have had to fly at night because we think they're being disturbed at their roost. And so we're just looking at this data now to get a better idea of where we might avoid like impacting eagles at sleeping sites, just so we can better understand their use in the landscape. Here's a zoom in on a couple of these sleeping sites in Orange County near Limestone Canyon, and you just see like they're just like these trees or whatever. So the more we can understand these places and model these places, the more we can kind of think about how we have how we time our activities in these landscapes. Real quick, the fire resource assessment program has been another thing. Looks like I have a minute left, so I'm going to kind of jump through this real quick. We did a lot of work this year on the resource assessment program. The idea is to help non-federal lands folks, as well as the federal lands, really minimize the impacts of fires by getting ahead of like planning before, and then being part of the event, and then post fire minimizing the impacts of the restoration. Just for people's perspective, like let's call it the cartel fire program. Most of these fires are being tied to cartel activities, moving people across the landscape, moving drugs across the landscape. So this is just a series of these border fires from this year. The big one is Border 32, but a lot of these activities are signal fires, or they're fires to distract resources so that people, sorry, almost done. Border 32, we spent a lot of time on. It's right on the edge of the MSCP, and impacted a lot of BLM lands in particular. One of the things that happens is a small fire by Palomar College, where these hand lines were to keep the fire from moving forward. This is what the habitat looked like ahead of time. This is what it looks like when it's recovered. If you don't do mitigation on these hand lines, then you end up with these long-term scars that become recreational avenues. And so we want to minimize that as we can going forward. Within the Border 32 and some of the other fires, lots of dozing activities, and we wanted to end, some of it was in critical habitat for like royal toads. And so we want to restore but minimize the impact of the restoration as well in those events. Some of the habitat burned super hot and burned up a lot of structures in critical habitat. This is upstream from arroyo toads, and we've just been awarded, we being the BLM, but our team put together this thing. The BLM just got $887,000 for emergency work to do restoration within that Border 32 fire because of our teamwork and putting together what needed to be done in that, and we just found out about this award. I think that's it. Continuing to develop this working group, this wildfire working group, and we'll be developing tools and resources for non-federal lands for reducing impacts from these events.
Well, that was extremely informative for me. I hope it was for everyone else. I want to thank all of our presenters for wonderful presentations, as well as the continuing work you all do to preserve our open space and habitat. I hope you all found it as enjoyable and informative as I did. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to working with you in the days ahead. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend, everybody. Thank you.